Hi, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Hello, hello. I'm really well. I have a cup of tea. I'm all set to go.
Well, I know you moved to LA about 2 years ago. Is that correct?
I mean, pretty much. I was kind of bi-coastal quite a bit.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a defining moment where it's like I put up a leaving sign, gone fishing and hitched my wagon or anything like that. But it's just been more and more gradual over the past 2 years. Yes.
Okay. Well, you moved here from, the city's biggest rival, New York. What's been one of the most surprising things you've learned about the city of LA since you've established yourself here?
I mean, so much about LA has surprised me in kind of the most wonderful ways. The food scene.
Yeah.
First of all, like I had no idea you guys were hiding such great food out here in LA. So that was like really a welcome surprise being a complete foodie. And then to me, I'm a huge history buff.
Mhm.
So I just find that it's the layers of history in LA are so fascinating to me. The old Hollywood history, the old kind of Pasadena old money world, the Spanish land grant families. So there are all these layers of history that I'm sort of delving into and really kind of still getting to know.
Have any kind of preconceived ideas or stereotypes about LA been debunked for you since you moved here? And has,
Completely,
yeah.
completely. I mean, I think there really was this New York, really kind of completely out of ignorance, sort of East Coast snobbery
Mhm.
about New York being the cultural capital of the world. And it was just amazing for me to come out to LA and discover, the art scene, for example. I think
Yeah.
is there's stuff happening out here that is so cool, and perhaps even cooler than New York. I mean, so many cool artists I know from the East Coast and around the world have moved to LA, first of all. So
Mhm.
there's a thriving art scene. And so, yeah, the culture scene here is a lot more vital than one would think or one is led to believe,
Yeah.
when you're sort of an elite East Coaster.
And have you found any kind of favorite places in the city where you like to decompress or where you find respite and refuge in? Or even favorite restaurants? Tell me about some of the food that you
Yeah. I
think
mean,
of.
it's I love old style diners, you know. So I love the Apple Pan, for example.
Mhm.
That's been a joyous discovery. I love going to like really classic Hollywood joints like Musso and Frank's.
Yeah.
It's such a cool spot. Dear John's is another favorite place in Culver City. So I love these old sort of Rat Pack era type places. First of all, to me, there's so much history to them. And I love the sort of old fashioned, like American food. But then I also love, you know, um, some of the more experimental places, Gracias Madre, for example. Like I
Yeah.
never thought I'd love a vegan cuisine restaurant, and here I am loving it. That's one thing I really, really miss more than anything else, because I'm such a creature of restaurants and going out to eat is eating in a restaurant and
Yeah.
feeling safe to do that. I've been really, really kind of on a very strict lockdown. So even eating outdoors freaks me out,
Really. Yeah.
yeah. So I can't do that yet personally.
LA is in many ways like other places you've written about and just as diverse in terms of the Asian American populations, both rich and poor. And I'm curious,
I
have you
would say
noticed?
more so than any other part of the nation, quite
Yeah,
frankly. I
tell
mean,
me
the
about that.
that was the other thing that is so kind of lovely and surprising in that, I feel like in New York, and I'm not one of these people that's really conscious of it that much, but like as multicultural as New York City is, I was based for 20 years in the West Village, which
Mhm.
is primarily very white, you know. Um, and then to move out to LA and to go everywhere to see so much like, so many chuppies, like Chinese yuppies and like blended families and Chinese families, Chinese American family, Asian American families, I should say, um, it's been kind of delightful
Hmm.
to see like this wide variety here in
Do you
full
find that your mind
force.
is just kind of jumping around with ideas for content for your next kind of upcoming books or stories?
Not from LA so far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think so much of my work, the stuff I'm writing right now, is still based in Asia or it's based in Europe.
Mm,
But I think, yeah, my brain is slowly downloading all this information,
sure.
and I think at some point it really will kind of inspire me. And maybe there'll be a project set in LA, or there'll be something inspired by LA. Right now I think I'm just like collecting,
Yeah.
and nothing's making sense, but it's all fantastic. So it's like, and I realize I'm still in the honeymoon phase, very much so,
Yeah.
but really sort of enjoying it.
Tell me how the pandemic has changed your writing process.
Well, I mean, it's been interesting. I mean, I finished my last novel, Sex and Vanity,
Mm,
right before the lockdown.
mm,
So I feel really grateful, because I don't know what would have happened if I had to write this story that's so escapist and joyful and comedic. If I had to write it in March or April, in the first throes of the pandemic, how that might have changed things, or whether it would have even possible. Like, would I have been too stressed out? As it is, I feel like I'm operating at 60% capacity. You
yeah,
know,
like most of us.
I can't, I haven't had to really do a lot of creative heavy lifting yet. I've had a break from writing during this pandemic. So it's been like a respite, but I'm beginning to gear up to do something again. So it'll be interesting to see like whether I'm able to like deliver or not, while we're still in this pandemic. I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see how that changes my characters and the storylines.
Right.
All these things are answered at the moment, but they will be once I start writing, you know.
And I know you were working on a few TV series before production was shut down because of the pandemic. What's it been like writing for television versus writing a novel?
They are such completely different worlds.
Yeah.
In the novel, I'm sort of God, and I can do whatever I want, and I can really mold it, shape it. It can be as long as I want, and I can be as experimental as I want. And I hand it off to my editor, and usually, they publish what I write. TV is a community project. It's a group effort.
Mhm.
It takes a village. And so there are a lot of people involved. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And I love collaborating. But it's a completely different process, number one. And then, of course, you're working within the confines of time, right?
Yeah.
In a novel, it can be 500 pages, 600 pages, whatever I want. Like I can take 3 chapters to really create a story or tell a scene. Whereas here, 1 page is 1 minute. And in an hour-long format, you've got 60 pages to make it all happen.
Mm.
So there's certain set time parameters, and then there are certain rules that you kind of have to learn, and then maybe you can try to break them in terms of creating a narrative arc, rising tension, climax, all that kind of stuff, that you have to like sustain to keep a viewer interested in, for 60 minutes, and then want to click, next episode after they see the first one. So it's a really interesting kind of puzzle and a challenge. And so, it's been really fun just sort of having this adventure. And then also, I'm very much not God in this world. So I feel like I'm learning so much from other writers who are way, way better than me, in terms of how to craft a story for TV.
What's next for you? Tell us a little bit more about what you're working on now.
Yeah, so I'm just juggling. I mean, the great thing about Hollywood is that I think there is an endless optimism here in this industry. Like, we are still working, people are still making stuff happen, people are still trying to figure out ways now to go back to safely filming. So, on the horizon, there's potentially at least 2 movies, the Crazy Rich Asians sequels, the adaptation of, my coffee hasn't kicked in yet. The adaptation of Sex and Vanity, is being done by Sony, so that's going to happen. I have 1 drama series in development. I have 2 unscripted series in development. So I feel like I'm just juggling all these fun projects and seeing, which ones get into the hoop, right? And which ones actually go into production. And so it's
Any updates on when we can expect the film adaptation of Sex and Vanity? Do you have any?
For Sex and Vanity, Sony is so excited, and they're really sort of fast tracking it. And so I think I can tell you that we just hired an amazing screenwriter
It's exciting.
to adapt my book.
Nice.
And they're going to get to work on it ASAP. And I think the idea is to be filming in Capri next summer. So, you know, once that happens, when do they, you know, once they have it on the can, when do they put it out? It just, you know, it's going to depend on their movie lineup. But, you know, you could potentially see Sex and Vanity on the big screen, I think, you know, in 2022.
All right. That's
Right?
exciting. Things to
Yeah.
look forward to.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.